All right, so we're going to graph some lines today, and we're going to take equations that are linear functions, but they're written in a certain format that's called standard form. So there's different formats or ways of writing linear functions. And one of the most common and most useful is standard form. So standard form is a linear equation that's written in this form: ax plus by equals c. Okay, and we will definitely work with this next year in algebra, but this year we're going to touch on it a little bit right here. Okay, so it turns out that excuse me, my throat's a little dry. So it turns out that if you have a line, unless it's perfectly horizontal or vertical, so if you can picture a line that's not perfectly horizontal or vertical, that line will always cross the X-intercept and the Y-intercept. So our goal today is to figure out where those locations are. Because guess how many points we need in order to accurately graph a line? Two. All we need is two. And it turns out that the easiest 2 points to find are where the line crosses the x-axis and where the line crosses the y-axis. So let's go ahead and dive right in and learn about x-intercept and y-intercept. So the x-intercept of a graph is the x-coordinate of the point where the graph crosses the x-axis. It occurs when y equals 0. So I want you to start making those connections. X-intercept, y equals 0. So over to the diagram over here to the right, guys. Let's take a look at that line. Here's our line, and the line crosses at some point A on the x-axis. So the coordinates are a comma 0, and we typically call the x-intercept a, just the number a. Okay. Now, that's the x-intercept. We're just looking for where it crosses the x-axis, and the y value at that point is always going to be 0 because that would be the coordinate value for y. Let's look at the y-intercept. And it's almost identical to what we just talked about for x-intercept. The y-intercept of a graph is the y-coordinate of the point where the graph crosses the y-axis. It occurs when x equals 0. So I want us to make that connection. Y-intercept means x equals 0. Okay. X-intercept, y equals 0. Y-intercept, x equals 0. Okay, so here we have it right here. And it's on the graph, it's where the line crosses the y-axis, and the x-coordinate would be 0. So we're calling it some point B. Any questions? So we're going to be hunting for these numbers. So let's take a look at a typical example. We're just going to jump right into learning how to find these coordinates. Okay? So here's an example that's all worked out for us. They want us to state the x and y intercept of the function 3x plus 2y equals 6. The graph, then graph the function. Okay. Here's the first step. The first step is to find the x-intercept. And in order to do that, we have our function, and we want to find the x-intercept, and we're going to go back to this important fact. Y equals 0. Okay? So we have the function 3x plus 2y equals 6, but we actually, to find the x-intercept, we know the number that y has to be. What does a y have to be? 0. Y has to be 0. So we go in, we rewrite the equation, but we replace 2 times y to 2 times 0. And the magic thing happens. What happens when I multiply with 0? Yeah, you get a 0, right? It goes away. So since it goes away, that equation that was a little tougher with 2 variables just becomes 3 times x equals 6, right? So 3 times something equals 6. What does that something number have to be? 2. So we figured out the x coordinate. The x coordinate has to be 2. Okay? So we did all that work to figure out the x-intercept number, 2. Let's do the same process, but for the y-intercept. So for the y-intercept, x has to be 0, right? So we take our equation, again, 3x plus 2y equals 6, but this time we replace x with 0. And that magic property of 0 takes effect. You get a 0 there, it goes away, you end up with 2y equals 6. And then divide by 2 on both sides if you're doing it algebraically, or you could just quickly do it in your head. 2 times something equals 6. Well, that something has to be 3. So the y-intercept is 3. So we basically have 2 points on the line. Okay? And here they are. We have the y-intercept coordinates, right? We figured out that it was 2. So the coordinates are 2, 0. Then we have the y-intercept coordinates. We figured out the y-intercept number is 3. So that would be 0, 3. And all you have to do is find those 2 points on the graph. And sorry about this, it scooched over. I don't know how that happened when I made the copy. You graph the 2 points. And that's all you need to make the line. We know the line will definitely go through all of those other points in between that are in line with that. And you just graph your line. Okay. So our job today is to figure out what line goes with each linear function. And we're going to do that by finding the x and y intercepts. Okay. Any questions? No questions? All right, let's just hop on over and do this. All right. So let me grab a different color pen here. This one. Okay. So the way I like to do this is we'll make a quick little T-chart similar to what we had there. And our job is to find the x-intercept and y-intercept. Okay. And let's get started. So we're going to graph this equation. 3x plus 5y equals negative 15. Okay? Pretty soon by the end, I think, most of you will figure out, okay, I just have to do this, and I get those numbers. And you can do it almost mentally. But we're not there yet. So let's just get started. X-intercept. Which number is 0 on an x-intercept? The x or the y? Y. So just to remind me, I'm just going to put y equals 0. Then I'm going to recopy this equation. But instead of 5 times y, guess what I'm going to put? 0. So 3x plus 0 equals negative 15. Okay? Any questions there? Just to clean it up a little more, I'm just going to put 3x equals negative 15. Because this is my notes and I want to be completely unclear as to what I did, I want to do that extra step. Okay? Now, if I'm solving this algebraically, divide by 3. And I get an answer for x. X equals negative 5. Okay? There is my answer for the x coordinate. What's the y coordinate? 0. Remember, we started with it. So write down those coordinates as an ordered pair. -5 first, because it's x, 0 second. That's my coordinate for the x-intercept. Any questions? Okay. Then let's try the y-intercept. So for the y-intercept, x has to be 0. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing. Go over here, look at my equation. So if I replace x with 0, what happens to 3x? It becomes 0. So I get 0, oops, wrong pen, 0 plus 5y equals -15. Okay? Okay so far? Remember, I can rewrite this, since it's plus 5y, I'm going to put positive 5y equals -15. What does y equal? -3, I think. Let's test it out. Divide by 5. To solve the equation, y equals -15 divided by 5 is -3. There we go. So what are the coordinates for the y-intercept? What's my x coordinate? 0. And what's my y coordinate? -3. Okay? So there you have it. Now, the only thing left to do is graph our line. So let's find -5, 0, and 0, -3. So -5, 0, here's your x-axis, here's your y-axis. Let's start at the origin. -5, 0 would be right here. Okay? And then 0, -3. How do I find 0, -3? Down to -3. 0, -3 would be right there. Okay? And then just as neatly as you can, we won't be doing too many of these. Most of this will be on IXL. Draw your line. Okay? This equation gives you all the solutions, and they fall on that line. Any questions? All right. So we're going to try one more together, and then, bless you, I'll have you try out the others, okay? Let's try one more together. You ready? All right. Here we go. X-intercept, Y-intercept. Now, here we go. We want y to be 0 for the x-intercept. We go to our equation, and we want to replace y with 0. So this is going to be 3x minus 0 equals -12. Let's get rid of minus 0. We don't need that. So 3x equals -12. We'll divide away the 3. And what am I going to get? X is -4. So there is my coordinates, -4, 0. Okay, there's one. Let's find out the coordinates for the y-intercept. So this time we want x equal to 0. Okay, so go to our equation, replace x with 0. What am I going to get? 0 minus 2y equals negative 12. So we don't need that 0, but I still need the minus. Negative 2y equals negative 12. And this time it's, in case you get stuck, it's a good idea to solve it algebraically by showing that you're dividing by negative 2 on both sides. Because what's y going to equal? 6. So we have our coordinates here. 0 and 6. Okay? And now, let's find the coordinates. Negative 4, 0 is right here. 0, 6 would be up here. So those are the 2 points that are part of the line for sure. And let's just connect them. Voila. Okay. Okay. So I'd like you to try 3 and 4. I'll pause this. So here are the 2 linear functions. Huh? Check my work. Does it all look good? You gotta be careful with those negatives. All right. So any questions? So the assignment today is to graph linear functions by finding the X and Y intercepts from equations in standard form. That's a mouthful.